Hey there, welcome back to the podcast. We had last week off, but we're back. I know you guys missed us. Today we're gonna discuss the Blazers power forward depth chart. We're gonna be discussing a possible Anfernee Simons trade. We're gonna be discussing a little bit about the Olympics, and make sure to stay tuned to the end of the video where we give our biggest Olympic snub. So let's start with the power forward depth chart. And it kind of works in with the Anthony trade a little bit because right before this, Riley, you were looking up a potential trade that you mentioned. Blazers, I mean, they don't really have a true power forward. The most of the power forwards on the roster are kind of big, small forwards or centers that would have to slip into that position. So what did you see?
Well, I've been pretty outspoken on this podcast about two things. One being more than two things, but two things that are relevant here. One being that I hate playing Jeremy Grant at the power forward. I think that's a total waste of his talents. I don't think that it works. I think that it puts him in an almost impossible position of guarding guys he shouldn't be guarding and being in spots he's not supposed to be on the floor. And the second thing being that I think we are in a situation where we have to trade Anfernee Simons. And that seems to be coming to fruition a little bit over the last couple weeks as reports have started to come out that the Blazers are going to move either Anfernee Simons or Jeremy Grant probably before training camp, but if not before training camp, certainly by the deadline. And Anfernee is kind of target number one, it seems like. He's very much on the trading block. They're open to offers, it sounds like. And one potential trading partner that I think is interesting is the Utah Jazz. It seems like for the most part, everyone's talking about Orlando, including us. We've been talking for what 2 years about Anfernee to Orlando, and that is interesting. But if things aren't working out there, we do have a second option, which is, as we know from what we just went through with Damian Lillard, it's nice to have a couple of teams competing for the trade. And it seems like Utah might be a good fit too, and they might even be able to keep Markkanen out of this deal and pair Anfernee with Markkanen, which is the way that it makes the most sense for them, I think. And that would include them sending someone like John Collins, who is a power forward, along with two first round picks, which I think Anfernee's worth that for Anfernee Simons and probably like Duop Reith. That's one potential trade that I was seeing floated around. And that would definitely give us an actual power forward, maybe so that Jeremy would at least not have to play so many minutes at the power forward. I know starting lineups are different from, who's necessarily playing all the minutes, but at least Jeremy could be out there with some guys who are bigger than him so that he's able to maybe play more of a wing position. So what do you guys think about that potential trade and landing spot for Anthony and return?
I like the landing spot, definitely. And Utah is not really a team we've touched on before. I still think San Antonio would be the sneaker best fit for Anthony, just
For
because,
Wimby,
well,
straight
yeah,
across for Wimby.
yeah, straight for Wemby, yeah. No, but Simons would fit well with Wemby. He would be the floor spacer, but not to go too deep into that. For this deal that you discussed, John Collins is obviously the salary because it sounds like there would need to be some salary matching there. Obviously there would need to be salary matching, but I don't love John Collins. I don't love. He's kind of just a filler player to me at this point in his career. And I don't want to bring Denny off the bench. Denny is a lot more the future of this team than John Collins would be. So John Collins would have to come off the bench. And I just don't know how that fits. But that wouldn't be really the benefit. The benefit would be the picks in this trade. I would really need to see what the protections on these picks are, whose picks they are, because I know the Jazz have a ton from Minnesota. So, like, are you getting to Minnesota where when Anthony Edwards is the best player in the league and it's the 30th overall pick? Are you getting a Utah pick? I would hope you would get at least one of each, just because you're probably not going to get two amazing Utah picks. You're probably going to get one Minnesota pick, which I'd be okay with, because you don't know what their roster is going to look like outside of Edwards in a couple years. So I would take the deal at this point just to clear the decks for Scoot and Shaden, as we've discussed. However, I mean, I'm not really pinning for John Collins in any way to be like the power forward we've been looking for, while I do agree about your Jeremy Grant take, where I think we should have at least tried to play him at the 3, the wing. I know they're all switchable, but I just don't love John Collins. But the picks, if we can get 2 firsts in an Ant trade, I'll take it. Honestly, I think that's fair value. So
Yeah, my first response to this when I heard it, or really when we were talking about an Anfernee Simons trade, is I almost don't want a player back for him because the roster's already there's already so much log jam. It's like if you get rid of him, you're just and bring back another NBA quality player, it's just going to create a different log jam at a different position. If you bring back like looking at Orlando, I know for a stretch of time last year, like Wendell Carter was floated. We floated that one a few times. I don't know if I'd want him necessarily though, because that means that Klingon would slip down to like third in the depth chart for the center position. I just don't really think that makes a lot of sense. I think, like you mentioned, picks is definitely going to be the most valuable thing that you can get back for Anfernee at this point. And so maybe a player like John Collins or a salary guy coming back because Simons does have a big contract. He signed that $100 million contract a few years ago. And so you're going to have to figure out a way to match him somehow. But ideally, it would be for a guy who's maybe on the move again or, able to waive or something like that. Yeah, John Collins, yeah, I think I'd probably I mean, if he was willing to come off the bench and be that kind of a player, maybe, and if he was, a good locker room guy and all those things, then maybe, but he doesn't really excite me. I do like the idea of getting 2 first, though. That continues the rebuild effort. It kind of kicks the can down the road and allows the Blazers to use those picks later in the future for a complementary player that makes more sense in that position if that happens. I just don't know if there's any, unless you're getting back like an obvious star, an obvious upgrade. I just don't think it makes sense to really take back another player. The roster already seems almost too full as it is. And so, yeah, you got to be looking at picks first for Anfernee. Funny
so
story, I matched with a girl on Bumble and she
oh,
had a picture with Anfernee Simons, and I was like, "Oh, did you get to meet Anfernee Simons?" And she's like, I'm his ex," and I was like, "Oh yeah," I was like, "You're messing with me, right?" And she's like, "No, I'm not." I was like, "Okay," and that was like all I got.
we need some more sources. I think you need to
Probably
definitely
messing,
take her
probably
up on that.
messing with me. I can't remember her name. Should I get her name? Do you? I
I'll
remember.
put it on here, but tell us
I
after.
remember. I remember he was dating a woman and she's like a model or something like that. I think this
This is
chick,
like way to Kirby flex. Hey, I'm dating somebody who
I
dated
mean,
me.
she ghosted me. She stopped responding to my messages after I was like, so Anthony. She also, it says she's 37 on Bumble. So I don't know.
This
It's
is
weird.
not something I thought I'd hear
There's
today.
certain
What
aspects
exciting.
of it that seem legit and there's certain aspects that seem obviously not legit.
My response was that he really should just immediately send a screen cap from one of our mini videos talking about how Anthony's got to go. He's got to get out. Got to get him out of town.
Yeah.
Got to get
So
him off the
I just wanted to
payroll.
apologize to her for all of our Anthony Simons slander real quick.
Right,
But
Riley. How do you follow that up, Riley?
well, I mean, I was just gonna say that it does beg the question of if we're not gonna get someone like John Collins as a return from a trade, and we still have Jeremy, assuming that that's where we sit, then I mean, what does this power forward depth chart look like? I mean, we still don't have a real power forward. We're playing undersized. So I guess that takes us into our next bit here, talking about what this power forward depth chart looks like from the Blazers' perspective if we don't get a power forward back in a trade.
It's a bunch of centers and a bunch of small forwards.
Yep.
I mean, so thank you for segueing me, Kirby. I think as much as I don't ever know if this works, you're gonna see Aiton Klingon minutes. You're just gonna see it. And if Aiton could stretch to the 3-point shot, it could look good because Aiton's so mobile. But Ooh, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. As far as starting goes, it's going to be Jeremy Grant. Obviously, he's going to start at the 4. We've said it on this pod before. We've had people that disagree with us on this. I think Jeremy would be better as a wing. He's actually mobile enough to kind of go out there on the perimeter like that. In my opinion, he's quick on help defense, and I just think he could rotate into the paint from the wing. I think it could work out, but um, that's neither here nor there because he's going to be your starter. I think after that you got Jabari Walker, right? Tumani Kamara is going to pick up some minutes down there at the 4. And like I said, Ayton will probably play some minutes at the 4. You might even have guys like Robert Williams and Duop Reith slotting in there at times. This is the position that is bookmarked for Cooper Flag, and next season will be Cooper Flag. So this season's kind of
Manifesting it.
manifesting it. Yeah, this season is just kind of a tryout to see who's going to be the backup to Cooper Flag next season.
Well, I mean, that just puts us in that same position, though, where Jeremy can't stay if that's the situation. If we did get Cooper Flag, then Jeremy's got to go. So, I mean, how's that?
Ideally, we trade Anfernee Simons and Jeremy Grant for Wembanyama, but that's probably not going to happen. So, but it would also legitimately, ideally, both of those guys would be on the move at some point, just for a ass load of picks. That would be, and maybe a few big expiring contracts that could be waived or stashed on the bench or whatever.
And you still see the Lakers throwing the most spoiled brat fit in the media. Every day there's a new article about an unnamed source saying the Blazers are so unfair that they want value for a 20 point per game, 40% 3-point shooter that can switch on defense. It's not fair. He's a 6'9" player that can shoot 40% from.
He would be so good on the Lakers. Why?
Why can't we get him for free? So I think that that's still in talks. I think that's still happening, and I think the Lakers are trying and failing to use the media to make Joe Cronin crack. Something that he had a lot more pressure with last year and didn't do before, and we were all proud of him when he didn't do it before. So good luck with that, Lakers. But I do think Jeremy's odds of going to the Lakers are a lot higher than any other team right now. If not, he's going to be your starting opening day power forward. And I did see that report that you're talking about, Riley, about they're looking to trade one of them. I did see that that's their goal. So I wouldn't promise that one of Jeremy or Anfernee gone, but let's hope that that's the plan. And if that's the plan, that's what we were talking about before the season. If Jeremy is on the roster, but Anfernee gets traded, I will take that. I will take that all day. And
I feel like the logjam is worse at the guard position than at the forward position because the hopeful stars of the future for the Blazers are at the guard position right now rather than the forward. Hopefully Denny and those guys will look really good this year. But obviously, as we all know, this whole thing is going to be built around Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson, and so you got to move Anfernee out of them, and as you say, Colton, clear the runway for those two.
I will say I'm at least glad to hear that the Blazers management is on the same page with what this podcast has been saying for 3 years, which is that Anfernee's not going to fit long term.
Yeah, because last year they were like saying he's the centerpiece of the team, and like building around him and stuff. But as you're shrugging, Colton,
he's a bum. You can't be the GM and be like, this guy's an idiot.
They're trying to raise his trade value too by saying those sorts of things. So it's not like that's it's not like I really am angry at them for saying that or anything, but it is, at least it's reassuring to us. It might not be the best strategic move to get value for him in a trade, but it maybe appeases the podcasters out there.
I just want to say one little tidbit, and we'll throw it back to Riley. But one of the interesting things that Joe Cronin said in an interview earlier this summer, he mentioned by name that they're building around players like Scoot Henderson and Shaden Sharp. Did not mention Anfernee Simons. That just should tip it off that's like GM speak for telling the fans, okay, this is what we're doing, but we're not going to come out right and say it. He would have said Anfernee Simons if he was a player he's looking to build around. The fact that he didn't say that should just tell everyone that's what the plan is. but you're not going to punt him away for nothing, which is good.
So I think it's worth saying because we'll give kind of our ideas on depth chart here as we go, but ESPN has us playing small ball on their depth chart. That's the way that they're looking at this. They're seeing Jeremy as our number one power forward, then Denny, Jabari, Kamara, and Chris Murray as the depth chart, and that's mostly small forwards. That is not a big power forward lineup whatsoever. Now, what I would like to see, and is a lot of what you were just talking about, which is I really want to see Klingon and Ayton play serious minutes together, at least to see if it can work. And then if it doesn't work, then I don't really want to see Denny trying to stretch out to the four. That's just even worse than the Jeremy Grant problem we were just talking about. And then yes, certainly if you're getting into like Kamara, I mean you're just trying to throw a wing into a spot against some really big, strong players that are going to be able to take them pretty hard. So I hope that that's not the way that we go.
It's not to say that there can't be minutes out there where they do go small and put, Jeremy and Denny during stretches, maybe when if it makes sense to with the matchup or if they're playing real well, if everyone's hitting their shots or whatever. But you hope that they can figure out a way to do both, because when you do play against the bigger teams in the league, you hope to be able to have size there. And if you play against the smaller, faster teams, you hope to be able to put more shooting and switchable defense and that sort of stuff in there. But I mean, looking at the depth chart there, what you just mentioned, I think it's pretty obvious that Ayton and Klingon, if they could make it work, that'd be the most talented front court available to the Blazers, probably. Does everyone agree?
Well, I mean, I guess
most
you run it.
likely.
There's a little bit.
I mean, go ahead, Riley.
I was just gonna say, I mean, Jeremy is obviously a very talented player, so I just don't think that his talents shine best at the four. So if he's on the team, I mean, he's got to get minutes. And I want to play Klingon and Ayton together, so that would mean putting Jeremy at the three, and then Denny's more of playing like a backup role, which I don't think any of us want long term either. Which means Jeremy's got to go in order for this to work the way that we want it to work. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I want to see Ayton and Klingon together because I think that's the future. But if you're talking about pure talent, obviously, like Jeremy's a great player. I just don't think he's our future.
We'll talk more about Denny too next week when we do our small forward depth chart video. Keep an eye out for that, everybody. But Denny is an exciting player. And again, when we first heard about this trade, and you're just like, what? Doing more research into Denny, I'm really excited to see what he brings this year. And looking at the highlights and the game tape and everything, he looks like a pretty good player, pretty exciting player. But the fit at the wing and at the power forward spot, I know basketball is more positionless, but all three of us on this pod have been wanting one thing since it started, and it's size, 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 size. And if you look at
with the Scoot and Shaden backcourt, just surround them with
they have
size.
size at their position, size at every position. If you look at the league, it's going back out of Golden State ball and into size ball.
Definitely.
Everybody's going size. Minnesota is huge at every position.
Wemby, Jokic, Embiid. Player, all the young studs are huge.
OKC's kind of a little different. They're kind of counter to that because they have Chet, which Chet's thin, but he's tall and skilled.
Denver's has a lot of size too. They won their championship with, size at every position. I think their smallest player is Jamal Murray at like 6'4", and everybody else is, at least hits the average size or bigger. So
size at every position.
That seems to be what's working again, going back to the 90s.
Yep. So I just want to see it. Like I said, Cooper Flag, 6'9", 6'10", we would take that, I think. But
plus that athleticism.
It's going to be interesting to see if Jeremy does get traded. I think they're just going to slot in like Jabari Walker probably to play that starting spot. And I do love what Jabari brings hustle-wise. I know we haven't really talked about him in this video very much. He's a great rebounder, and I think he's a good fit off the bench. He's kind of a good eighth man hustle guy.
One of the few bright spots last year, I thought.
Totally hustles. So I like watching him play. I don't think he's a future superstar, but he's not really built to be that. And he was a late second round pick, and I think he's provided that value and more. So Give him more minutes. See, maybe if he starts hitting that three, he's even more valuable.
We ready to move on? Speaking of all these log jams at positions and all sorts of lineup controversy, let's talk about the Olympics team for a second. Undefeated so far. They play Brazil tonight, I guess, to 3:30 in France, or I don't know. They're gonna be playing them soon. Um, Steve Kerr obviously has his hands full trying to satisfy all these egos by rotating them in and out of lineups. The all the controversy surrounding Tatum not playing, Durant coming off the bench, but they're winning the games. And I gotta say that the not just the USA, but the rest of the teams, they've been pretty competitive. A lot of NBA talent out there. They play an NBA style ball, which I like, very fast paced, a lot of 3-point shooting, a lot of drive and kick, that sort of thing. And I think that FIBA has some stuff figured out, or I don't even know if it's FIBA, Olympics has some stuff figured out, which I like, that I kind of am interested in the NBA possibly adopting. One of the big ones is the point spread that the Olympics has, where it's getting rid of the garbage time because these teams are trying to keep their plus minus as low as as good as possible. So these teams, they're down like 8-9 points with a few seconds left, and they're still going after it with each other, trying to get the last points, trying to hit the threes, and that it's been entertaining to watch, and it seems like it breeds some rivalries because the team's up like 7-8 points and they're still going full attack at the other team. The other team's getting pissed because they're losing. They want to try to cut the deficit as much as possible. I really love to see that, and I think that's something that the NBA could easily adopt into their schedule. It would get rid of some of that just garbage time stuff that we've seen. I don't know, that's been part of the NBA for so long that some fans might like it because you're allowed, get some of your bench guys a chance. But I think that adopting that would be cool and have that be one of the maybe the first tiebreaker, total plus minus. What do you guys think about that? And what do you guys think about Olympic ball so far? Man, France and the US, can't wait for that game. Canada and the US, can't wait for that game. There's a couple uh big potential matchups out there that could be pretty dang fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the increased competition that seems to come not only from what you talked about, like the plus minus point spread mattering so much, but also just what these teams are playing for. They're definitely playing for a lot of pride. And another thing that's important, I think, to remember is that it's not just gold that matters. Even if these teams do understand that the US is a juggernaut and even if they don't necessarily have the confidence that they're going to be able to be number one, although I think some of them really do believe that. But I mean, getting a silver or a bronze for your country is a huge, huge accomplishment. So these teams are fighting hard, even just to get to that point. And yeah, I think it's an awesome alternative to like the Elam ending, to try to get rid of the garbage time, try to make the end of the games more exciting. I think the point differential also accomplishes that without totally changing the structure of the game. So I love that. But speaking of playing with some pride, the USA basketball team is incredibly talented. They can beat just about anybody when they put their mind to it. But there's a few things I've seen that really are driving me crazy, especially early in the games where they're not playing like they are representing the United States against teams that seriously want to beat them. They're playing like it's an all-star game and they're out there trying to have fun. They're like, doing the like 3 passes for an alley-oop instead of just taking it to the hole hard. They're like, wouldn't it be funny if we had Embiid rebound it and go full court? Meanwhile, Grand Theft Alvarado runs up behind him and just takes the ball and scores on him. They're like overpassing, trying to be cute, trying to be clever. And then in the second half, that completely goes out the window and they actually like get yelled at by Steve Kerr and I have to imagine LeBron James during halftime to start taking it freaking seriously. And then they go out there and just crush them, like, completely crush everybody like a bug because they are just insanely talented. And when they play like a team, they can beat anybody. They're probably still going to win even with the stupid stuff. but it's bothersome to watch because I know what they can do. And I also know that they just think it's weird that they're out there playing together and it's not an all-star game. Like I kind of get that mentality of like, oh, I'm Anthony Edwards and I'm throwing it to Embiid. Isn't that crazy? That's like, I'm playing a video game. But like this is the Olympics. The other teams don't think it's cute. They don't think it's funny. They're out there to destroy you if you give them even a little glimmer of daylight, which we saw with South Sudan. So yeah, they need to take it a little more seriously if they're gonna win it all, but they most likely are going to because they've got a couple guys on that team that are ready and they want to win. They know it's probably their last
Stacked, too.
Olympics. Yeah, knowing that it's probably their last
Riley,
Olympics, knowing that they don't want to be embarrassed, they're gonna get it done.
Riley, is your favorite movie during Christmas time starring a certain guy named Scrooge? Because bah humbug, I think that they don't have anything to worry about with how they've been playing. Obviously, they know when to turn it on. The games haven't really been close. Like you said, they turn it on in the second half. I think if they lose, and then yeah, it's a wake up, but it's not going to happen. So I don't have any like. France has been vastly overrated. They lost big time to Germany. Germany's a bigger threat than France.
Yeah, I forgot to mention
Uh, Schroeder's like one of the best FIBA players ever. All of a sudden, randomly, and Wagner, of course.
Wagner, yeah.
Uh, so they're interesting. Canada's interesting, but they're all that interesting. They're not. I don't think there's really a threat right now to beat the U.S. I really don't. But FIBA ball is interesting. There's a couple things I really want to touch on before we get to maybe our snubs. One thing that I think it could come to the U.S. but won't, and two things that won't. So the one thing that could come to the U.S., the NBA that I want would be the play with the rim. So goaltending, you can swat the ball off the rim, and you can just grab it off the rim.
You like that for the NBA?
I like that. I wish that's just more active. Like you're not just waiting for the ball. Like, yeah, they still have goaltending when it's, coming down, I believe. You can't just swat it when it's on the way down. But if the ball's on the rim and just hanging there, go up there and like it's just more athleticism on display at
You
all
know who's
times.
good at that? I noticed it makes a lot of sense that he'd be good at it. Joker. He did that several times. Speaking of
Exactly.
another team that's good, Serbia, they could
It's
do some
exciting to
damage.
watch more than just letting it ride on the rim. The other two things that I want to say really quick that won't come to the NBA that I wish did, more physical, just pretty self-explanatory.
Less foul calls,
Less,
is that what you
yeah,
mean
I
by
mean,
that?
just more physical play up and down the floor.
Kind of a little bit more
Few
allowed.
flops. They're not going to give you a flagrant, right? The other thing is less timeouts and commercials. The games flow, the games are physical, and I like both of those things. Neither of those things are going to come to the NBA, but I like them. And the Olympics have been fun to watch when I've got to watch, outside of the random times that I can't watch it at noon on a Tuesday.
I have a few points to make real quick, and then we can get to our snubs. First, with the Team USA. Uh-oh, I forgot that point already. I'm gonna go to the other one. It's so fun watching these different matchups, like Giannis and no other NBA player against like Team Canada that has like 8 or 9 NBA players, and he's just carrying this team. He's like the best player on the court, probably, or him and Shea are probably the best
Definitely.
players on the court, and he's completely dominating. But he has like one other guy, Papagiannis, which is funny that that's his name. He's like the only other guy that can score. They literally can't get a third guy going, and he's going against, Dylan Brooks and RJ Barrett and all these NBA guys. And then seeing like NBA players who are role players kind of elevated to that star level,
Patty Mills.
Like Grand Theft Alvarado. That dude's been balling his brains out lately. Who did you mention?
Patty Mills every
Yeah,
year goes
FIBA Patty.
off. Yes.
Yeah. And with Team USA, uh, man, what was I gonna say? I lost it. Sorry, guys. They're
Okay.
obviously extremely stacked. Kevin Durant looks him and LeBron on the same him, LeBron and Steph. I know everyone knows, but man,
That's been bad, but
they're a
yeah.
cheat code. All right, is that it? We done?
Snubs.
Snubs. All right. Who do you guys got? Anybody want
You
to
go,
start us
you go
off?
first so I don't steal it when I switch my answer because I know what you're gonna say.
Do you? I don't think you do because it's wild. I don't even know if it's a snub, but it's just someone
Okay.
I thought of that I was like,
Okay,
dang.
say it.
Damian Lillard. it's interesting that he's not on the Olympic team. I mean, when you look at an Olympic team, a lot of times they go for the veteran guys because it's their last chance, or they have fewer chances to go represent their country and win a gold. Looking at Steph Curry, I think this is his first Olympics, and he's obviously, at the tail end of his career. Damian Lillard's running out of chances now. I don't know, he might have one more chance, maybe. Yeah, this might be it. And kind of surprised that he didn't get in there. I guess obviously there's some turmoil maybe. And he has to take care of other stuff. He's still trying to get adjusted to a new team and that sort of thing. And a different lifestyle. And so yeah, I'm not exactly surprised he's not on there. I think like Tyrese Halliburton probably had a better year and is more deserving of the spot. But Tyrese has so many more chances going forward. It's interesting that Dame's not out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that at all. That was one of the first people I thought of too. And Tyrese would probably be the one that I would replace. I mean, Dame's a top 75 all-time guy. Yeah, he's on the top 75 team. That counts for something. And I mean, he's an incredibly talented guy. He could be helping them. He would help them. He and LeBron are buddies too. They play well together. They've shown that they can play well together several times. So yeah, I was a little surprised by that one. But if I was gonna name one snub, I think I'd probably have to go with Jalen Brunson, outside of Dame, because I mean he had just an incredible year, and he's such a like Cinderella story for the whole country too. I mean, who doesn't like Jalen Brunson? And the way that he's been playing and the way that he could help a team, he is such a utility guy. The way that he can fit in anywhere and do so much for the team, energy wise and mentality wise. I mean, talk about, the Joker ball going on in the first quarter. I don't think he'd be putting up with any of that either. So I think they could use somebody like him. And he'd probably make the team better. So that would be my pick.
I totally
He's
agree,
like
but he broke his hand in the last game he played with the Knicks. I think they're probably, I don't know if he's even cleared to play, and if he was, they probably are just trying to, the Knicks are wanting to protect him. He's trying to prepare for next year, probably.
he's a good defender too. So if he could play, he would fit
His
in.
the mentality point that you made, I do like that. He would
Hmm.
bring a level of seriousness to the team.
People forget Damian Lillard when he was on the Olympic team last time was not good. Part of that was because of his nagging injury, but go back and look, he had like one good game. That's it. He was very bad on the Olympic team. My guy, he's another Jalen B. Jalen Brown. He I know the everybody's talking
Finals
about the
MVP.
media. He's the finals MVP, but like imagine you are the finals MVP and you get passed up on three times off your own team. That that's just weird. I get it, but they had Kawhi Leonard. Okay, he's a wing archetype defender. They replaced him with a guard versus the same player archetype on his own team. That's better, So I get it. They needed a role player, but was Kawhi a role player? What were they doing with that? So that one to me is pretty crazy. I can see why Jalen would be annoyed.
I remember my point. I'm going to mention it before we go here. With the Team USA, it's funny how they're in a weird position where if they win, it's kind of no big deal. It's sort of, as we all said, it's sort of, par for the course, standard operating procedure. But if they lose, my goodness, I can't even imagine what that would look like, how embarrassing that would be to all those guys. How much it would be 2004 and how much of a disaster that was all over again. So it's not going to happen, but if it did, my goodness, that would be a wild scene to see LeBron and KD and Steph all like, head slump walking off the court after losing to Brazil or some team. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week to discuss small forwards for the Blazers and other stuff. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.